Okay, so this is the review of the women's movement. So, what were the reasons for the women's movement in the 60s and the 70s? World War II, it gave women new roles and new opportunities, and they wanted more of this. The contraceptive pill became available in the 1960s and giving women more freedom over their lives. And then many women began to react against the 1950s ideas of women as wives and mothers only. And many were influenced by the swinging 60s. And when I say swinging 60s, what I'm talking about there is specifically the freedoms that were sought in the questioning of roles and identity. And then by now, women were better educated in the 60s and they wanted to use that education to pursue a career. And they did not want to devote their whole lives to their husbands and their family. Betty Friedan, she wrote a book called The Feminine Mystique, which was published in 1963, which said that married women should be able to have careers as well, and that husbands and wives should have an equal partnership. And this inspired many women. And the National Organization of Women was started in 1966 by Betty Friedan as a result. How did women protest? Well, most women in the women's movement, they wanted the following things. They wanted equal pay with men. They wanted opportunities to get top jobs. They wanted childcare for working parents. They wanted action against male sexism in the workplace. And they went on marches. They organized petitions. They made appeals to the Supreme Court. They held demonstrations, etc. They did the same thing that were successful as the civil rights movement and the students movement. So they learned. Use the same things: sit-ins, picketing, boycott. Other women, they were more radical, and they believed that by not wearing makeup, this was an act of protest against male supremacy, which is called patriarchy. And these women, often known as feminists, they burned their bras because they saw the bra, as a symbol of male domination. However, these women, they often did more harm for the cause than good, because what they were doing was reported on because it was salacious, and so it was viewed by many as a distraction. So like, instead of like people being identified for their actions, in this case burning their bras, as being a protest against the patriarchy and women being unable to get equal pay or job opportunities, instead what people saw was angry women burning a bra, and that was a distraction from the cause, and it didn't advance the cause, it hindered it. So the other thing is some women wanted to make abortion legal. Not all women, but some women did. And they believed that women should have the right to choose whether or not to have a baby. And you should also remember that some women actually opposed the women's movement, and they believed in the traditional role of women. The most influential person of that group that viewed the promotion of the traditional role of women was Phyllis Schlafly. So what did women achieve? Well, the women's movement, it was important, and it did achieve a number of things. So, for example, the Equal Pay Act was passed in 1963, and this was as a result of Eleanor Roosevelt's panel that was put in place by President Kennedy. And it said, the Equal Pay Act says that men and women should have the same pay for the same job. In 1964, we have the Civil Rights Act, which banned discrimination on the basis of gender. Now won a lot of court cases in the late 60s, which the courts decided in favor of the woman, and that woman was given money so that she would be paid equally to men. And actually, this is still happening to this day. There are women who find out that their male counterparts that have been doing the same job for years, decades even, have made hundreds of thousands of dollars more than them. They sue, they win, because that's a violation of the Equal Pay Act, and then they get paid. Now, it has to be the same job, though. You have to be doing the same thing. And then we have the Education Amendment Act, which was passed in 1972, and it said that girls could follow exactly the same curriculum in school as boys. This is also where Title IX comes from. So this is a big deal, because if you're into sports, this is why boys and girls are able to have access to money for their athletic endeavors. Otherwise, schools, if you think about this, right? If a school had to make a choice between cutting volleyball and football, it depends on the school, of course, but a lot of schools might choose the volleyball. They can't do that, though. There's the famous case of Roe v. Wade, 1973. The Supreme Court ruled that abortion was legal, so this made abortion legal in all 50 states, even though the majority of states had abortion down as illegal. However, sexist attitudes will continue. They don't disappear, and progress has been fairly slow compared to the students' rights movement or the civil rights movement for women, but there definitely were achievements made. And that is your review.